Good morning, Math 2 students. I am posting this video in case you are not able to join us for our live Google Meets for Monday, August the 17th. I want to walk you through a couple of things that you're going to need to know before you can start your assignment for today. First of all, you've already logged on to Google Classroom if you have access to this video, but I also want to show you how you can get started with Delta Math before we start our math homework. From North Johnston's homepage, you can go to Classrooms and select my name, Melody Brown. And I have lots of information here on my website. If you scroll down to the bottom, you have a link to the student schedule, my Google Classroom code, and my Delta Math teacher code are on the bottom there. Okay? To access Delta Math, where your homework assignments are going to be, you have to have this 6-digit teacher code. Now, at the top of my website, there are instructions for how you can get to Delta Math, so we're going to go through those right now. We're going to go to deltamath.com. We're going to create a new account. You're going to choose student and then enter in my teacher code. So we're going to do that now. If I go to deltamath.com, I'm going to the top corner here to create a class and students. You will put in my teacher code, which is 409911. And from here, you will select whether you are in my 3rd block Honors Math 2 class or my 4th block Math 2 class. The 4th block is a Standard Math 2. After you select which class you belong to, you can put in your name and verify your email address and password to get started on Delta Math. It is incredibly important that you go ahead and get signed up for your Delta Math. Okay? You do have a Delta Math assignment for today that is due tomorrow. Okay? The other thing that we're going to talk about today is this worksheet that I have shared with you on Google Classroom. Now, this is the answer key to the worksheet, so I want to go over several things with you that we're going to go over in the Google Meets today, but if you were unable to join us, then you're going to need to fill in these now. Okay? All of this information is review, and you have your Delta Math assignment is a review of these topics that we're going over now. First of all, you need to know about a coordinate plane. Whenever we have two number lines that intersect, we have 4 quadrants formed here, and this is how we plot points. So let's review very quickly. The coordinate plane is 2 number lines that intersect at right angles. The x-axis is the horizontal axis. This is the x-axis that runs from left to right. The vertical axis is the y-axis. That is the axis that runs up and down. Okay? The origin is where the x and the y-axes intersect, and that ordered pair there is the ordered pair 0, 0. Should be really easy for you to fill in these blanks. Hopefully this is a good review for you. Now, quadrants are when your axes intersect and they divide it into 4 different areas or 4 different sections. Now, when we name our quadrants, we start in this top right quadrant here. This is quadrant 1, and then we rotate counterclockwise. That is your blank right there. The quadrants start out with Roman numeral 1 in the upper right corner, and we go counterclockwise. Now, if you think about the direction that a clock ticks, that would be clockwise. So when you go the opposite direction, that is counterclockwise. So we have quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you would like to label, this is pointing to the origin, point 0, 0, that is the origin. This little thinking bubble here is pointing to the x-axis. That's the one that runs from left to right. And this bubble is pointing here to the y-axis, which runs up and down. Okay? The next couple of blanks on your worksheet are talking about ordered pairs. These are 2 numbers or 2 coordinates that identify the location. When you write your ordered pair, you will always do x first and then the y. The x coordinate tells you how far you move to the right, which would be positive, or to the left, which would be negative. So when I start at the origin, If I move to the right on the x-axis, those would be positive numbers. If I move to the left, those would be negative numbers. The second coordinate is the y-coordinate. That's going to tell you how far you move up, which is positive, or down, which is negative. So after you move right or left for your x-axis, then you will move up or down for the y-axis. Anytime you move up, that's positive y values. When you move down, that is negative y values. So the next activity to complete on this worksheet is just recognizing where these points are. So on your worksheet, all of these are blank, so we're going to fill in and get the answers. Point A, if you will notice, it is in quadrant 1. And if I start at the origin, I have to move over 4 spaces to the right. That's a positive 4 on the x-axis. And then from there, I have to move up 4 spaces, which is a positive 4 on the y-axis. So the location of point A would be at 4, 4. Positive 4, positive 4. That is in the first quadrant. You will do the same thing for all of the points here, filling in these pieces. Notice that point B is down here in the third quadrant. To get to point B, we have to move to the left 3 spaces and then move down 3 spaces. So again, if I count 1, 2, 3 spaces left and 1, 2, 3 spaces down, that is represented by -3, -3. Because moving to the left would be negative x and moving down would be a negative y. The location of point C, because you're moving positive 3 spaces and then down 6 spaces, the location of point C would be at 3, -6, and this ends up in the fourth quadrant. And then point D, starting at the origin, you're going to move to the left 5 spaces, so -5, and then up 2, which is represented by +2, and that is in the second quadrant. Okay? If you go to the second page of your worksheet, we're doing the exact same thing, just a little bit reverse. This time I'm giving you the coordinates and I want you to practice plotting and labeling those. So point A is supposed to be at -2, -2. So from the origin, I'll go 2 to the left and down 2, and I will plot and label my point A. And this, of course, is in the third quadrant, so I wrote that down. You can stop this video at any time and fill in the rest of these and use this as an answer key to check. Okay. The last 2 things that this worksheet reviews for you is your distance and your midpoint formulas. These formulas were taught to you last year in Math 1. I have provided the formulas for you in case you have forgotten how to do those. So the bottom part of this worksheet is just to practice using your distance and your midpoint formulas. I'm going to do one example of each of these with you. Okay, in this first problem here, they want us to find the distance between these 2 points. So using the formula, I'm going to plug in these coordinates. I want you to notice that one of my points, point V, has an x-coordinate of 3 and a y-coordinate of -2. So the x-coordinate is 3, I've plugged that in there, and the y-coordinate is -2, I've plugged that in there. Now this point has an x-coordinate of 1 and a y-coordinate of -5. So when I plug in this point, I'm using the +1 for the x-coordinate and the -5 for the y-coordinate. So I'm going to take this second x and subtract the first x. So 3 subtract the 1 is what I have in parentheses here. According to the formula, after you find the difference between the x's, you will square that number. So the difference between the 3 and the 1 would be 2, and 2 squared is 4. Now I'm going to find the difference between the 2 y-coordinates. So the difference between a -2 and a -5, if I subtract -2 and -5, that is a difference of 3. And then according to the formula, 3 squared would be 9. After you find their differences and square them, you add those numbers together, and then you take the square root. So your distance formula, if you remember, is the square root of the difference in the x's squared plus the difference in the y squared. So I substituted in the coordinates and used order of operations to simplify. If you need more practice with order of operations, you need to email me or do a Google Meet with me so that we can go over that. The midpoint formula is just an average of those 2 points. So if I want to average these two x's together, just like you would average 2 test grades by adding them up and dividing by 2, we're going to do the same thing with our x's. I'm going to average them by adding the 2 x's together and dividing by 2. So when I add them up and divide by 2, that is the x coordinate of the midpoint. You'll do the same thing for the y coordinates. You're going to average them by adding the 2 together and dividing by 2. And this one happens to be a decimal, which is okay. So this is the video that goes with today's lesson, just a review of some Math 1 concepts on plotting points and distance and midpoint formula. Okay, please feel free to go back, to take notes, to pause the video, to try some of these on your own, and don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions.